Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we continue on with our Superman Legacy series. Obviously, we're still a year and a half out from Superman Legacy actually coming out to theaters. I believe it's going to be July 11th, 2025, which July 11th is the anniversary of James Gunn's father's passing. So that's why he chose it to be on July 11th. Um,
Weird.
yeah, I just found that out. So we'll continue to do a series on Superman Legacy and videos, kind of discussing as new developments happen. So today we wanted to talk about, because there's been a lot of discussion on they haven't revealed the actual suit yet. James Gunn delayed the suit reveal. But when
Mm.
you look at the poster that they have on like IMDb, everything, it looks like the golden age of Superman. So we're going to discuss whether or not Superman Legacy should be or is going to go in the route of the golden age of Superman or more of the injustice route. Mantis,
Mm.
what are your opening thoughts on that?
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I read that they had leaked some plot points where this is supposed to be Clark uh, um, trying to come to grips with his Kryptonian heritage and his humans upbringing, but also in a world where like hope and goodwill and those type of things seem foreign concepts.
Hope starts with an H, stupid.
And if he's supposed to be the beacon for those traits, those values, I mean, to me, that speaks heavily. They're leaning into the golden age storyline type thing. So it would make sense that, with like you were saying with the suit on IMDb, that would make sense. However, I wouldn't be opposed to an Injustice storyline. It would just be a little bit obviously later in the story of how that develops, right? Considering this is supposed to be kind of earlier in Clark's life, I guess. So, yeah, I like both storylines. Like, I like both. And technically, you could do both of them in the same kind of thing. It would just be later on in the timeline of Superman if you wanted to. It's kind of interesting though, because like in again, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Zack Snyder's Justice League movie, the end credit scenes of that is kind of the Injustice storyline, right? Like Joker tricks
Yeah,
Superman into killing Lois and detonating the nuke in Metropolis, right? Like that's that whole thing. So uh they kind of was doing that before. I like that storyline again. I'm cool with either of them. So I don't really mind either. I think it's just again what this all comes down to, the storyline, the story is there for all of it. It's whether or not they execute it correctly.
Don't fuck this up, Mitchell!
So
well, first off, you aren't wrong on either of them that you said. Correct me if I'm wrong on. Actually, the initial on IMDb, that's what the synopsis is that he's
okay.
trying to come to grips with his Kryptonian heritage. However, it does say truth and justice. They left out the American way part. Whatever, fine.
Well,
You
hate
know,
America, hate on America.
IMDb just hates America. Sorry, they do. But
Hollywood
like,
hates America.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, which I'm fine. Whatever you want to do that, but yeah, I kind of feel like because of where there were so many people with Man of Steel that didn't like that he snapped Zod's neck, and there you had the fandom split into two halves of people didn't like how dark it was, and then some people really liked how dark it was, and wanted to see it kind of go that way. I feel like leaning to the light side might be their best bet. And if you've watched here just recently, we did the review of the Marvel's Echo show. That was kind of Marvel going into the dark side, right? Like they're going a lot more gritty, bloody, and it's kind of funny. Like they're like, "Hey, let's start dipping our toe in this." While then DC's going to come and say, "Let's go back to the golden age of Superman."
Mm.
Where he did stand for truth, justice, and the American way. He was that beacon of hope. He was always the constant force for good. Whereas it always kind of seemed like Man of Steel, and don't get me wrong, I love Henry Cavill as Superman. He's still my Superman. It was always just kind of moody and brooding and things like that. I kind of like, yeah, let's bring back the old classic. I don't think he has to say like "Golly, Miss Lane" and "Gee" and stuff, but it would be kind of
Yeah.
nice, in a world that we live in right now that is kind of going to shit. It would be kind of nice to see that, hey, like, even though we'll never get that beacon of hope in real life, to have one of those, at least let me, fantasize about it in the movies. So, I like the idea. And again, if you look at the movie poster right now, that is the Golden Age Superman. And a couple of the fan art concepts have shown, if you've watched Superman and Lois, the very first episode on CW, he's in his very first suit. That's Action Comics #1. He catches the green car, and that's that suit. They showed the actor that's going to be playing Superman in that suit as like a concept art. I think that would be awesome to have him in that suit, at least initially. He doesn't have to stay in it, but
Yeah,
I would
real
like to see
bright
it.
colors. Kind of looks cheesy, a little cheap. Yeah,
Like Captain America in his very first suit. Like, in the
right.
movie, like when people see that suit and they're like, "Oh God, that's terrible." Well, that was his original suit in the comics, so that's how it
Yeah,
looked.
he didn't have a little sweatshop of suit makers to sew him awesome looking stuff.
And all of that. And then they couldn't even conceptualize some of those designs, and some of the materials those were made of didn't exist back then when it came out in the comics. So update for the times, which is why, like in Superman and Lois, I love, you see him in that suit initially, and then as he's progressed as Superman, he gets the
Sure.
badass suit. So I'd like to see something like that too. Which
Yeah, they took a different route, obviously, in Man of Steel, where his suit was like literally on the ship. So, like, um, a different way of doing that, obviously. Um, but I think you're right. Like, it's pretty clear that they're going to go with the classic Superman tropes in the Superman Legacy, which kind of makes sense. The name, I mean, it does. Um, uh, uh, you know, and I'm all for James Gunn kind of tackling that. It's maybe a little bit off his or out of his wheelhouse in that feel of a movie. But I don't I don't necessarily think if he did the Injustice Superman, it would be in his wheelhouse either. So who knows though?
So the one thing, and you kind of touched on this in the beginning, that I think is what I'd like to see, and what I feel like the original movies had was, it was such a stark contrast between your hero and your villain, right? Like Superman
Mm,
couldn't fathom that somebody was this evil, that he was willing to
right.
kill millions of people just to increase the value of his land, which, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of us that
Mm,
probably feel like if California just kind of fell off the map, we'd be okay with it. Like I don't hate the
uh,
idea that he had the execution and killing millions of people. Like I don't want them all to die. Just let them be their own little island and float out there. But um,
mm,
you know, like he couldn't understand that somebody could be this evil, right? And I feel like if you do Golden Age Superman and then you introduce a villain that, like, if we do Injustice, where he finally, and like Mantis had said, this would be multiple movies in, right, after you probably already had a Justice League movie, but like he comes to meet, Joker from Batman's world, and he sees true evil, right? Because Lex Luthor is evil, yeah, but he's kind of like, he does it in a way of like, hey, I'm helping people. I've got businesses that provide infrastructure for the
well,
city.
it's pure selfish reasons why he does what he does. Like
Absolutely.
it's literally that's literally it. But you're right. Like Joker, that's a completely different level of
He
you
doesn't
can't
do anything to help
explain.
anybody, selfish reasons or not, right? He's
Well, also it's like two different trains of thought. Like normal people that aren't psychotic can't comprehend how people would be that, right? Like to normal people, it doesn't make sense how you think that way. But when you're psychotic and the flippers and the bumpers work, but the score is all wrong, like they don't think like that, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna kill this person and it's fine. Like it does. Like there's no empathy. That it's what is that where you don't feel emotion, like good or bad, like
A sociopath.
Maybe I can't remember the single term for it, but it's like a completely different type of bad guy for Superman in the sense, right? Like I feel like a lot of his others, there's motivation behind it, and Joker's not that way at all. Like it's this is like pure doesn't make sense.
Well, kind of like if you go back to the Dark Knight series, when Christian Bale's Batman was trying to fight Joker, and Alfred tells him, he's like, criminals need some, they're looking for something, and he's like, some people aren't looking for money or power; they just want to watch the world burn.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
And it was hard for Batman to get his head around the fact that he is only out to destroy everybody's beliefs. Like he wanted Batman to break his rule and kill him to show that he was corruptible, that everything could be corrupted. And I think that would be a great, if you started out Golden Age, I would love to see like movie 1 do Golden Age, and then movie 2 maybe do Silver Age, and then movie 3 do Injustice or start Injustice. I think that would be a cool, timeline transition to show him growing and getting older as Superman. But yeah, like he doesn't understand those. So like when Joker does what he does, he loses it, right? Because it's the people, like when you have that high of level values that they experience that type of evil and those tragedies like he does, that again, he shows Superman is corruptible. He can, somebody that believes so in so much good can go the complete opposite way. And just start, hey, enforcing his will on people.
Yeah.
I really, really like. I love Golden Age Superman, and I'm looking forward to it. I really hope that's what this movie is. But I really was looking forward to an Injustice kind of a movie. Like I want to see it.
I think he may be onto something. Maybe it's something they can clearly explore down the line. I mean, it's definitely it's definitely something they can do. And you're right, like it would have to obviously clearly be after they introduce Justice League and several other characters, but Injustice Superman may be not a specific Superman movie too. It may be like a Justice League thing because it does involve like the storyline does involve a lot of Justice League members, so it would almost have to be, I don't want to say it would be like a sequel or the third part of a Justice League trilogy, but it kind of feels like that's where they would have to put it.
I feel like what I would like to see is, again, if we're talking trilogies here, right? Golden Age Superman, Silver Age Superman, the start of Injustice. Like at the end of that Superman, the third Superman movie is where he goes Injustice. He goes kind of bad, right? And then by that time, maybe you're on your second or third Justice League movie. Now you bring, like, that's the conclusion, or that's one of the Justice League movies is now. Because if you don't know anything about the Injustice storyline, spoilers, skip 20 seconds of video, but he basically kills every member of the Justice League. I mean, he goes after them all who try to get in his way. I mean, he doesn't just go out psychopathically killing them, but when they try to stop him, he shows who's really in charge. You know, because obviously he kills Joker and then he just wants to impose his will. So, all right, into spoilers. But I think that would be a great way to tie in, as well as then, you know, you could use that if you're still wrapping up other character stories like a Batman or Green Lantern or whatever, if you're ballsy enough to do that.
True.
Like,
yeah.
The aftermath of, like, in their movies, this is post Injustice, right? I think would be cool. So,
yeah.
I don't know. You know, details are still sketchy at this point. We're waiting to see, and I kind of feel like, I could be wrong, but once he releases the actual suit that's going to be in the movie, that might give us a little more. Like I said, if it's that iconic, that old original, you know where they're going to go with it. They're going to lean into the Golden Age more, but we will just have to wait and see. And as we are in the know, we will let you know. So, in order to keep our New Year's resolution, I'm going to say that probably through the first few videos, that we're going to try to keep it under 15 minutes per video. Definitely, if you like this video, consider liking it, subscribing so you can stay up with our Superman Legacy series, and let us know down in the comments what you think, one, about the video, or which one do you want to see first, Golden Age or Injustice? Although I do feel like, after saying that, you could do Golden Age and then Injustice. You really can't do Injustice
what I'm
and
saying.
then Golden Age. So,
Yep.
but-
If you start with Injustice, that's kind of the end of that. Or you could do it like an alternate universe type thing. You know, that would be the
no, when I say Injustice too, real quick, I don't mean start off first movie, he's Lois dies. I mean like a more of that darker timeline of like where things are kind of leading down the Injustice path, right? Still same thing. By movie 2 or 3, you're getting to Injustice. I don't mean start off very first movie. Oh my God, Lois! Like that's it. They do no backstory. Lois just dies and he's evil. Just staying like. Do you want it to stay light like Golden Age Superman, or do you want it to eventually turn dark like Injustice? Let's say that.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably should have said
and
that.
this is my closing thoughts because I think I alluded to it, but it was like I want to see them do both. So I want to see, the Truth, Justice, the American Way, Superman, Golden Boy, Boy Scout, Superman, Clark Kent, all of it, and there's
Bad
yeah,
vibrations?
Bad vibrations?
there's plenty of
Well,
yeah, there's plenty of time for them. Like again, because if they're rebooting everything, which they are, this is the perfect time to map all of this out. Hopefully, they have discussed all of this and are not winging it like they did the other time, like the past 20 years that they've done this. And we'll get to see that at some point eventually. Hopefully before we die.
It's not looking pretty, man. I will say, being in 2024 now, it's not as bad saying next year, 2023. You're like, oh, it's coming out in 2025. I'm going to be in a retirement home watching the first
I
Justice
know.
League movie when the time this happens here. However, if that does happen, I will still bring you that video from the retirement home. Okay, just might
Right
happen.
after arts and crafts time, we'll be watching.
Right, and then I will take a nap. So, if you made it this far, like I said, I already said it a little bit, then we kind of interrupted it. Definitely like, comment, subscribe, and Mantis, unless you have anything else.
I'm good.
All right, that will wrap it up for us here on this one. We'll see you on the next one, guys.
Later.